get us started.
Okay, we're being recorded. Thanks, Mev. Thanks, JR. Good day. Welcome to everybody. Over 100 old lesbians on our OLOC Zoom today and counting, 101. So that really makes us feel great. My name's Rhett Scazzillo. I probably have met all of you at some point, and I'll be your facilitator for today's Zoom. So let's get started. In July, I attended the National Women's Music Festival as I'm the Spotlight stage manager. And when I returned home, women were asking me about the festival. And I replied, well, I can sum it up in 2 words, Holly Near. Her concert was inspirational, heartwarming, nostalgic, and gave me a lot of hope for the future of lesbian feminism. So that's pretty good, I'd say. And for someone like me who's seen it all, it's very good. So I want to welcome to the OLOC Zoom stage today, Holly. We are still here, Near. Take it away, Holly.
Thank you. That was a very, very sweet introduction. And I wanted, before I jump in, is there technically a way to have Carolyn up near me on the lineup so that when people are looking at, we're all together at the top there?
I will
let you
all of you
figure that out, and I'll just start talking. So Because of a Song is a website that lives out in cyberspace, wherever that is, and it's free. It is an historic archival website about women who made huge contributions to the development of feminism, feminist and lesbian feminist music. It actually just started out because I noticed that our elders were getting elderly, and also some were sick, and I thought there's some stories here that haven't been as well told as the stories that have been told about the sort of big 4 white women artists of mid-70s. There was the Holly, Chris Williamson, Margie Adam, Meg Christian scene that happened. And yes, we were, in hindsight, exquisitely good. Our harmonies were lovely. We were fun together. But that was in the mid-70s, and so much had happened since then, and that the narrative had changed significantly from that first moment of excitement. So when I thought in my own community to talk to 2 people who I felt would alter the narrative by their very being, and that would be Mary Watkins and Linda Tillery. So we did those interviews, and they were so fascinating and so revealing, so joyful, and also so painful, and so full of information that I felt we as a community really could benefit from, that I kept interviewing people. So I interviewed Melanie DeMore, who's here, and then I interviewed Carolyn Brandy, and it kept going until there are now 23 interviews in the website. Women from various walks of life, cultures, reasons for being there. And as it turned out, as the more I interviewed people, one, I realized I couldn't leave Oakland in the greater Bay Area, or it would be too huge a project. I had to take a geography that was manageable. And the second thing was that I needed to understand why Oakland. And in the interviews, without me pushing that issue, every artist started to speak why they came to California. There were a couple reasons. Like the men went to Castro, the women came to Oakland. There were women who were leaving their homes, their families, their communities, their churches, their temples, their universities, their marriages, and they looked around to where to go. And they might have landed in San Francisco, but a lot of their energy came over to Oakland. People who were involved in the arts, when they first arrived, would start chatting with people, particularly women of color, would be talking to each other. And almost without exception, each one of them was told, you should go meet Linda Tillery. Mm-hmm. So she was an anchor, unbeknownst to her. She was an anchor. She was part of a all women of color softball team. There were bars where women of color were gathering, and both Latina, African American, indigenous women, Asian women, And their experience with feminist and lesbian feminist music came through a different door than mine, which was so informative, educational, challenging, moving. It was just great to talk to these 23 people. So in the website, if you go to becauseofasong.com, it's huge. You can't sit down and look at it at one time. You have to keep going back because 23 hours of interviews right there. There's a photo page. It's kind of designed like a gallery. There's the photo gallery, which was put together by Tess Hoover. Tess was at the time in Oakland, the sort of go-to tax person that all the lesbians and the lesbian 501c3s were going to. And she's retired now, and she's my dear friend, and agreed to start collecting the photos. So that's a photo page. There's a conversation page. There's a page that's identifies how American Sign Language came into this. Why were women's concerts using American Sign Language? It's a wonderful section of the site. Where I interviewed actually my older sister, because ASL came to me through her because she was working with the National Theater of the Deaf. You'll learn more about that if you go into that area. There's a resource room with probably 10% of what's available, but a good starter kit for people who are looking to get more information about lesbian culture. And there's a listening room, which is one of my favorite. There's 6 playlists, and each one of the playlists has, I think, over 100 songs. The women who came before us, the lesbian feminists, the women who did not leave the industry but push feminist ideas through their songs. Like Loretta Lynn had a song called Now That I Have the Pill, where astounding to me that she sang this song, I think, in the 60s or 70s. And so there's a whole thing about the women who moved into the mainstream. And then there's women who write about women, children, and the earth. And then there's the next generation coming along. So there's about 600 songs in there that you can enjoy at any given time. So that's because of a song. And I think what we're going to do now is, because Linda and Mary can't be with us live, I wanted to use a little clip from the site so you can get a sense of what the interviews are like. So we're going to start with Linda, but I also just want to pause for a minute to thank Carolyn Brandy and Melanie DeMore for being here live and in person, wherever they are. I think Melanie's in Oakland and Carolyn's in Philadelphia. And I'm going to come back and talk to both of you in a bit. So let's show the little clip of Linda Tillery from Because of a Song. Linda, we're growing old with each other.
Yes.
I've known you a really long time.
40 years, maybe?
Getting at least, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just find it really moving to still know people all those years, you know, and we watch each other in our creative process and all the good times and the bad times and all of that. And I'm so glad you've been in my life.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
Yep.
An interesting journey.
Mm-hmm.
I think I may have told you this once before, but I have sung on more of your recordings than any of the other women in women's music.
Wow, I think you did tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anytime.
Four or 5 of them, you know.
Yeah. Well, you're a wonderful arranger of parts. And I always know that if you come in to sing support, you'll bring great singers and that they'll know how to get to the notes quickly because the clock is always ticking in the studio.
Yes,
you know?
it is.
And you understand that and you get the work done. And have done so with lots of artists in the Bay Area, for sure. What's some of your favorite sessions you've done?
I think the very first session that I did with Coke Escovedo, who was the uncle of Sheila and brother of her father, Pete. And what I loved about that session is it was the first time that I actually got to work with studio musicians from LA.
Oh, and how is that different?
They were so efficient. You know, I mean, boom. Yeah. It was like that instant groove. Everybody remembered the arrangement, you know, and I was like, oh, a little intimidated.
Yeah.
In particular, The drummer on that session was a guy named Harvey Mason, who at the time was the go-to drummer, from LA. So I was really impressed with that. And then the next was, and this is all in the 70s, the next was a session with Lenny White, who was a member of Return to Forever with Chick Corea and those people. And he was making a recording, and he had one vocal tune, and they called me to do the lead. And so I was really excited about it. And then I got scared because they told me that the keyboardist was Herbie Hancock. So,
There wasn't any pressure there.
Yeah, well, that sort of thing, it's an ego boost, but it also means that you really have to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
Fear or no. And it was a lot of fun. And then I can go back now and listen to that track, and I just get excited.
Yeah.
The turnabout for me was when I realized that the control was not mine. I was a hired hand.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that controlling a session was going to become important to me until I did it. And that was with B.B. Caroche.
I love that record.
That was the first time. They came up to me and said, "Will you produce our record?" I'm like, well, I don't think I've ever done that before. But I've certainly paid attention, to producers. And I said, I have to think about this. And I thought about it for one day. I mean, of course I wanted to do it. I just thought, what if I fail? What if I do a terrible job? What if I,
All the what ifs.
Yeah, all the what ifs. And they assured me it was going to be okay. Well, it turned out to be a good sort of rock and roll record.
Yeah. Talk about B.B. Caroche for people who don't remember them.
They were a kind of organic group of women. On the days when we would have lunch together, we'd have these huge cloves of garlic, which I had never done this before. And we just eat garlic, like with our tuna fish or whatever, and we smell like like a garlic patch. They were kind of turning me on to things like Wayfarer's bread and all that. This real, organic kind of group of girls. And I remember Virginia Rubino, the keyboardist. She had a dog. Can't remember what the dog's name was, but the dog also was a kind of a vegan. So she would eat cottage cheese. The dog ate cottage cheese. Well, she ate some garlic too.
Not a bloodhound, though.
No, it was a real kind of garlic.
Oh my God. Does any part of that relate, Carolyn? Are you looking at that?
Oh yeah, we were back in the hippie days. Hippie days. We were trying all kinds of things.
Yeah. What I love about that, I mean, some people could be watching that and going, well, when are you going to talk about women's music? And why I love this site and why I love where the introduction of diversity, and I don't just mean race, but a diversity of class and culture and parenting and not parenting and all that. We don't all think about women's music the same way at all. And it's what makes it such a rich trove of stories, is because if you get stuck in thinking women's music is one thing or another, then you're missing all the other, and Linda's talking about garlic, and she's talking about Herbie Hancock, and these are all things in Oakland that make up Linda Tillery, and Linda Tillery therefore churns it up with all her talent and her creativity and gives it back to us as a big Black radical lesbian feminist. You know what I mean? So we don't all come through having just read lesbian poetry. We come from these life street experience, and it's in the music. It's in the music. And I see you nodding there, Melanie.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, in my early times before, first time I ever met Brandy, was when I lived in Austin, our house, when I lived in Austin in the early 80s, was the place where all the women musicians would come to stay. So all of Alive stayed at our house.
Oh, my goodness.
And for me at the time, I was, besides singing, I was playing the flute. And I had been playing with all of these guys, these jazz bands. And Rhiannon and them said, why don't you sit in with us? That was the first time that I played with all women jazz musicians and musicians. And that was in Austin, like 1980, 81.
That's an
That was
amazing
my
story.
first exposure, yeah.
Yeah.
That's when we first met.
Austin was really a fun place to visit because there were so many likes there, and it was so was happening in Austin.
Yeah, totally.
We met beautiful women all across the country, and they all came to Oakland.
Yeah, they all came.
There you go.
You know, it was in Austin where I first met Mary and Linda.
Yeah, you talk about that in your interview because of a song where,
Yeah.
And about Mary's first record, The Brick Hut.
Ah,
So tell us about
Something
The Brick
Moving.
Hut.
Something
What's
Moving. One of
what
my
are the other of
favorite
your-
albums of all time.
Yeah.
Something Moving.
It's a good album.
Did you hang out, Carolyn, at the Brick Hut, the restaurant?
Oh, of course. Are you kidding me? Not only was the food good, the ambiance was good, and everybody came in, and you saw everybody there.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
to Joan for fixing us some good food all those years, too.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's as close as we might have come to, at least on the West Coast, is what was going on in Paris in the 30s, and the James Baldwins and
A
that
salon kind of thing.
place where women came and got to find out what was going on with each other. You know, there were girlfriends and breakups and cheating and all that stuff too, but you
All
know.
with the Brick Hut.
The Brick Hut. Oh gosh. So now that we're talking about Mary, I want to move in and play the little clip that we have of Mary Watkins. I'm sorry she can't be here. She's so articulate, but you'll hear that in this interview. Let's go there.
So when you do an opera about something as intense and as dramatic as this, and also the other operas you've done have been similarly, didn't you do Fannie Lou Hamer?
Yeah, Dark River, and that focused on Fannie Lou Hamer and Snick.
And
I
then-
did one other, but that was about Clara Barton of the Red Cross, so it was
Not quite as dramatic?
not
maybe?
quite as dramatic.
Yeah. And then you also did a symphony that was five movements in color?
Yeah, an orchestra suite.
Did
yeah,
I say that title right?
yeah, it was 5 movements in color, and it was recorded. You know, it was something I wanted to have happen, but what's a long shot have something like that happen? I'm not really known as that kind of composer, but, you know.
Was it in Chicago or Detroit?
was in Chicago.
I remember listening to it and being so grateful that it got recorded. I'm kind of undone. I'm getting, teary thinking about it. How much extraordinary work doesn't get documented because of the kind of system that we live in. The greatness that slips out of our memory and our fingertips because of the inequities of who gets the money and who gets the power. And I'm just so, how did it come to be that you got your work recorded?
Well, Nan Washburn was the music director of Camellia Symphony, and they did most of their performances, all of them really, in Sacramento. She commissioned me to do a piece, and I had worked with Nan for several years because I did the Revolutionary Nutcracker Suite, and I chose her to be the conductor. So she got an early experience with crossover, do classical and working with classical musicians and pop musicians, and it was really fun. We did it for several years. So she commissioned me to write for the orchestra, and that was, I used that recording as a demo, and there were also other people. Helen Walker Hill wrote a book about from spirituals to symphonies about black women composers, and I was one of the subjects of her book, which helped. And she had a connection with Columbia College in Chicago, and they have a department for black music, you know, an archives for black music, and they focus on black composers, and so that's how it happened. And they wrote a grant to do this project, recording project.
So I didn't.
Wow, Mary,
Ugh,
just
I
unbelievable.
love, love.
Come
Mary.
on.
Yeah,
I love me some Mary. We call it Dr. Mary.
Dr. Mary.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
And
She,
she's the
I'm,
sweetest, nicest, kindest person. I mean, so she's so humble.
Mhm.
You know, she's just, she's a treasure.
She really is, and her music is really, really exquisite. I mean, and Mary and I have performed together a lot. She is not only such an extraordinary composer, but what a musician.
Yeah.
What a musician. And her music, she approaches it, everything is really filtered through her heart. So that just makes it extraordinary.
She's a great accompanist. After my time with Jeff Langley, who was the man I worked with from the time in high school we went together, and Jeff sort of put his Juilliard career on hold to work with me for 11 years, which I forever honor that. He felt like what I was doing and what we were doing together was of equal importance to his Juilliard hopes and dreams. For those of you who don't know, Jeff died a year and a half ago. And he's sorely missed. I just spent some time in North Carolina with his husband, and it's so hard to walk around that house because Jeff is just everywhere in that house. His piano, his scores of music and all of that. So, but Jeff had a real understanding about songwriting and about women voices. So he was a great accompanist. After him, I worked with Mary. That was the transition, was into working with Mary Watkins. She was so different. Jeff was like a very busy piano player with so many sounds and ideas and all of this. And Mary started playing for me. She'd go, da-da, da, da-da.
But that's because Mary understands the musicality of silence and
Of
stillness.
silence. Yeah, it's part of the interview we do. It's like, Mary, what goes on in that brain? And so I had to learn to really, you couldn't see it in my shoes because I didn't tap my foot, but I tapped my toes inside the shoe because I didn't want to make it look like I was a rhythm idiot. But just to keep in touch with where Mary was a full-time job as well as doing the songs. And I learned so much from her. Oh my goodness, learned so much from her.
Consummate musician, that one.
Yeah.
Consummate musical artist.
I can't remember if I said this already, but maybe I said it before we started. But she's been commissioned by Juilliard and Interlochen and will perform at Lincoln Center April 12th, 2024. So those of you who are going, and she said short of another pandemic. Oh dear, there is always that. Anyway, there's a lot more fun in Mary's interview, and I hope that you'll all take time to listen to that. Carolyn, I wanted to talk to you a little. What?
Brandy,
I know.
Oh, you're kind.
I knew you when you were a punk kid, and now you're like an elder. So this is really fun.
Like an elder. I am an elder.
Not a like an elder, right? None of us are a like elder. I'm just pretending to be an elder.
I'm very proud to be an elder. I
Yeah.
feel like all of us have earned every single year, and so I'm like really proud of my 77 years. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I really am.
I just got a letter from a choir that said that some of the people in the chorus were uncomfortable in my song Voices because it says, listen to the voices of the old women. And they wanted to change it to wise women. And I said, well, you can do what you want, but I meant old women. That's what I meant. And that's the way I'm going to sing it.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Carolyn, the interview with you was so much fun, starting out with all of the women out on the street that you formed Sister Boom. And then, of course, you started in with Alive, that since World War II bands, there hadn't been women-only jazz quartets, quintets. You know, after World War II, people came home and the women who had been covering that music and really becoming great musicians at that time were sent home so that the men could have the jazz band jobs again. And Alive was breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. And then the work that you've done around drums. So I want to show the clip first, and then I would love for you to talk about any part of and all of it that you would like. Here goes the clip. Maybe.
Be a sec.
Carolyn, I have goosebumps because I feel like you have been such a presence in this music world in Northern California, but all over the world, and how you have created space for women to rise up and drum, which has not always been the case, right? And I want to ask you about that, but also your participation in being a founding member of Alive, which I think was the first all-women jazz ensemble in this new era in the 70s. Obviously, women were in jazz ensembles when men went off to the war, and they took those jobs. I just see it as having these moments of your musical participation that affected so many people, whether you knew about it or not. It was so powerful. And when I think of the drummers that you invite to your summer drum camp from all over the world, and that wouldn't even have been possible in 1975, would it?
No, it wouldn't have been, because we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And we were all, you know, there was a movement that was happening that we didn't really even know was happening.
And what was that?
A women drumming movement that's, you know, if you Google women drummers, you're going to find hundreds and hundreds of pages about women drummers in China, in Japan, in South America, and, you know, in the Caribbean, in Europe, in the United States. And when I started in 1968, that just wasn't the case. There were those women that were out there, but we didn't know each other.
Right.
You know, and so it was kind of being, it was being in a vacuum. And I didn't really realize at the time when I started that women weren't really supposed to be doing this. I just
Do you think you would have done it anyway?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I believe in destiny. You know, I believe that we make a contract about what we're going to do on the planet. And so I am very thoroughly, I'm sure that this has been my destiny. So it's about the music, but it's also, for me, I think part of my destiny has been what you mentioned, is that I have a way of being able to bring people together. And that's been a big theme in my life, that I've gathered particularly women together. And it's all around the message of the drum, Holly. And the message of the drum is so profound. First of all, we all have it. You know, we all have that rhythm. Rhythm is what it says that we are alive. It's that rhythm of the heartbeat. And all cultures have a drum. All cultures have drums. And the drum is a call to community. The drum is a call to gather. You know, it's a loud instrument, and so people can hear it, but it's also, it sparks this energy in people, this excitement in people. People either love drums or they hate drums. I found out they can't stand it or they love it. But you know, you've been in a situation as a kid, even when you heard those drums coming in a parade and they were coming, and you just got more and more excited. Well, that's what drums do for people. And I really know, I know this in my soul, you know, that drumming it's a human activity. It's a human birthright. It's like you with the song. The voice is inside of you. And we all have that. And it's the same way, you know, with this rhythm, with the drum.
Do you remember your first experience as an adult of knowing that this was what you were going to do, that this was a
For the rest of my life?
Well, not for, but that you, even a particular incident where you said, I want to meet other drummers, or I want to bring them together. Was there a first spark of that?
You know, I started drumming during our Cultural Revolution. And so I was also on a journey, you know, to find my identity. And so I don't remember a particular moment, because I'm a person who I'm a little bit introverted in some kinds of ways, and for me to say I was a musician was a big deal for me. Like, I had to sort of prove myself before I was able to say that. So I would say probably, gosh, I don't know, maybe in the early 70s, I realized this is what I wanted to do, and I really put my my whole heart and soul to it. I practiced, I studied, studied, and really was on a quest for excellence, in regards to the music and the drum.
That's a great clip. I love, what I love the most about that? This time, I've watched these interviews so many times. But every time I listen, something else stands out. And Carolyn, this time it was I studied. Yeah,
You have no idea. I'm still studying. I have
exactly.
my private
Well,
lesson tomorrow, and I've been practicing all day.
You got to practice. You got to keep on practicing. And
Practice.
Brandy, first of all, there's just the community that you've built through your drumming. But let's just, as a songwriter, can we just say two words? Spirit healer.
Ashe.
Spirit
What-
healer.
Spirit healer, just an extraordinary song. And was actually the thing that grabbed me on that Alive album, that Spirit Healer, because the thing about that, first of all, it was just such a beautiful song, but I could feel the way that the whole band was embodying that song in particular, because I think that it spoke to the heart of, to me, who Alive was. So I gotta give you props for that tune.
You can
Somebody,
find that song on the playlist, and I think the version we probably have is Rhiannon singing it. But
It's
many people,
that. It's
Carolyn,
a
who else has sung
beautiful
that
piece.
song?
I'm sorry.
Who else has sung that?
Heather Bishop recorded it. Different people have sung it. Regina sings it all the time. Regina Wells, Rashida Oji, she sings it a lot.
Did June Millington sing that, or was that a different?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. I don't think that Junie sang that one.
Have you sung it, Mel? Have you?
I have not. I have not.
You really do. You'd sing it good.
Oh, there's a
Oh.
moment right here. Stamp.
The weight of this
Deliver,
world.
deliver that.
Where is the spirit healer?
Yeah. I think something's going to happen.
We recorded that song in 1978, and the message is still so true.
No, I mean, people are, and even now more than ever, the song is completely 100% totally relevant, Brandy. So I am saying right here for myself, thank you for writing that song.
I mean, I was going through a really hard time when I wrote that song. And I would become obsessed with writing, with the composition of a song. Every word had to be just exactly so. I remember writing a song with Mary called Step by Step.
Love that song.
Yeah, she wrote the music, and she told me the story. I get she was in a cafe, and some music was going through her head. She wrote the music on a napkin with she wasn't even in front of a piano. I was going to her house taking lessons because I wanted to learn more about harmony and stuff. And she said, "Oh, I just wrote this song. Check it out." She played it, and I said, "Mary, can I write lyrics to that song? I'm already hearing lyrics." It comes like that to me, like it comes like it's some sort of spirit that comes. The song is like a living thing that comes. And so I think I locked myself into a room for like 2 weeks. I finished that song. Because the words, and it turned out the words are really, they're really good in that song. They really work. But Spirit Healer was, I mean, I was going through a really, really hard time, I remember, and I stayed with Rhiannon for a while with her partner at the time, whose name was Chelina, and I was ill, and I was having trouble finishing the second verse. The line that really always sticks with me is, "All these moments of suffering just remind us to love," and it was really because I was suffering at the moment. So it came out in that way. And Spirit Healer, we sang at every single concert. And of course, Rhiannon, her interpretation was always different and always deeply moving for all of us. Sometimes I wouldn't even play on the song. I would just listen to the rest of the band play. That was really, thank you, Mel, for bringing that up.
Well, it's an extraordinary song. And the thing is that what we get to do is really, it's about medicine. It's about nourishment and about that's what it is, because the world is filled with so many empty calories. And I gotta say that song, Spirit Healer, was a nourishing meal for me, and I know for everybody. And because it spoke to the truth, it was a medicine that everybody needed. You wrote it because you needed that medicine. And then it became the medicine that everybody that hears it needs at some time or another.
You
To
know,
be
it says
themselves.
there's a woman sitting next to you who's got
Right.
next to
That's
nothing.
right. That's right.
So true. Even today, it's so.
I'm saying relevant, relevant, relevant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks, Brandy, for that song.
Thank you, Mel. Love you so much. You know, we're it's so um it's just so crazy. Like we could be in Oakland like at that during those years and not just even really get the profundity of everything that was happening there in that one place.
Just because we're just living our lives, and just doing our thing,
Hey, we're just done to done to done to done. I
Yeah.
wrote a great song today. You know, it's like, and
But even
so
if you
it's
just
so.
live in your lives, you look back and realize that those were extraordinary lives. We didn't know it because we were,
Living
not
them.
stepping outside of ourselves and going, oh, well, that's good. But it all came together in a way that will be such a gift to leave for posterity. So just before we jump into Mel's clip, I just wanted to remind everybody that, first of all, the women that you're seeing now, as well as, I don't know how many of you saw the event at the Freight, which was, they did a lovely honoring of my years, and everybody who came to perform did a piece associated with me. The most extraordinary performances, one right after the other. And I just wanted to say to people who use the word nostalgia when it comes to all of us, do what you want to do, but we're all still working and working at a really high level and trying to hold together community and hold together a community that's not an easy one to hold right now within the lesbian, feminist, bi, transgender, whatever the every generation brings a new thing to it, and that new thing is coming on big in a time when there are a lot of people trying to destroy the planet. And all those of us who came through, and I would say, put that in terms of thousands of us who came through, are now, with knowing it or not knowing, are adding that level of experience to the world. And I say it to those of you listening because you don't have to do anything in your life. Might add, this is the only planet we know of that has life on it like here, and you get to be here. Want to sit around and do nothing? That's okay. But Aunt Holly's telling you to do something. If it's fun, or if it's wild, or if it's meaningful, or if it's just making food for a neighbor, or whatever it is, to bring our whole selves to this moment in time on this planet. And I'm hanging out here with two real elder goddesses. I couldn't be happier.
Can I say something, Holly? Can I take a minute to say
Yes,
something?
please do, and then we'll yeah.
You said to comment on the clip, and the clip talks about the drumming thing, that my story, my journey, which I had no intention of breaking barriers or whatever. I just wanted to play drum, but that it was destiny. This just happened to me in the last month. There was a fellow that's here from Uruguay, and I had met him. He's a drummer, a really great drummer, and one of his friends had posted on Facebook that he needed a room, and I have a big house and I've got extra room. So long story made short, he came to live in my house, okay, for 3 months. He's here on an artistic visa. We got to talking. The fellow, he knows nothing about me in my life, not really. The guy's mother was a lesbian in Uruguay in the 1940s, okay? And his mother was the first woman to break the taboo for women to play this particular drum that is the national drum of Uruguay.
Oh my God.
And this happened all in the 50s and whatnot. I had never heard of her or knew. And he's got a big picture of her on his arm playing this big drum, and she took a lot of horrible things people did to her and said to her, just like I did too when I, when I did my journey with that. But you see how things happen? I mean, it's like, it's kind of mind blowing. Isn't that mind blowing?
How did he find you in the universe, of all the people? Yep. I love that story. I love that story. And all the more reason, I'll once again say this to those of you out there listening. I happen to have a film crew. I had a philanthropist who paid for the budget. But we all have these little cell phones with cameras on them. And in your own communities are these stories that if you don't tell them, nobody else will, because the dominant culture is not interested in them. But they're good stories, aren't they? They're to be found, to leave a trail, to be discovered. Melanie, let's, I want to get all this in before our time runs out, but it's such an interesting conversation. Let's play Melanie's clip and then we'll go on.
I because in all the different ways that I use my voice and that I sing, it's like I use my voice as a weapon of mass connection. My students used to say, "That's a misdemorism." I say, "Yeah, what are you going to do?"
It is.
And the whole idea about that.
You have to say that again one more time. It's good.
What, using my voice as a weapon of mass connection?
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, just had to hear it again.
Yeah. And sometimes I tickle myself. But I've been going, especially in the last few years, my main mission has been to make places where all kinds of people can get together. Mm-hmm. The whole idea is that, if everybody really has a place at the table, that means that there has to be a chair for everybody. Yeah. And there cannot be any conditions on that. Mm. Our job as artists and activists and all of that is to make sure that there's a place for them. Mm-hmm. Their job is to sit their ass down in the chair. Mm-hmm. And so somebody asked me, I do a lot of community sings and that's part of my work. And someone said to me, well, now, do you do it different if you're in Tennessee than you do it if you're in San Francisco? And I said, no. Mm. That's not what this is about. So I can talk about all kinds of things that connect us as human beings. And so that to me is part of being a vocal activist. And I've helped start a lot of, because there are choirs popping up all over the country. I mean, this community singing thing is off the charts right now. So I've been helping start a lot of resistance choirs. But my premise of it as a vocal activist is it resisting the temptation to otherize, right? Resisting the temptation to separate, resisting the temptation to do that, and resisting the temptation to make people smaller and to really make it welcoming. And today is the anniversary of Jonestown. Today is the anniversary of that day. And when you talk about the basic premise of that is that all of these people thought that somebody really saw them, even if it was a lie. And one of my things is that people drink Kool-Aid for a reason. They want to be part of something. They just want to be seen. And so, even if it's a lie, and we're dealing with that right now, of folks who think that this person sees them when he doesn't even care. So that's my main thing as a vocal activist. Let's, all get together. I care about what your heart is. And if we can connect people in that way, maybe we can get past the rest of this bullshit,
Can you give a very specific example in one of those workshops where transformation happened?
Well, this is really, when I got called to go to Eastern Tennessee University. They called me up and they said, we need you to come. I'm like, okay, I don't even know who you are. He said, we heard about what you do, and they had talked to some other people who had seen what I do. He said, we had a Black Lives Matter rally here at our university, and a white male student came dressed in a gorilla costume with bananas and a noose. And people are just freaked out. So would you come? So I went there, and I was there for about 4 or 5 days. And I set up some open mics in the student dining area, where they have, like a food court. And so I set up open mics. We did singing. I had people come up and do spoken word. We had all of these other kinds of things. I did a thing a storytelling class. This is the only university that you can get a master's degree in storytelling. And so I did a whole stick thing and talked about the Gullah people and all of that. So worked with all of these storytellers.
Can you?
Beautiful.
I was coughing. I'm back. That was just that. Every piece of the interview with you is just amazing, including the most extraordinary baby dyke picture I've ever seen. I don't know if that's accessible to pull it up and show, but damn, you were cute. So cute. Still are. Still are. Oh, the way you connect people is, I'd like you each to talk for a minute with these worldly, global, as well as local personal experiences that created who you are today. In a word or two, how is what you do influenced by the fact that you're lesbian feminist?
Well, I know for me, part of it is I like to show up just as I am. And in my work, I literally work from everybody to Baptist to Buddhist and anybody in between and on the outside of that. And one of the things is that when I work in these different churches and shuls and all that, I go dressed completely. I am a proud, card-carrying, masculine of center, butch woman. And I go into these churches, baby, decked out in my suit and tie. Here's a quick thing. I had a residency on one of the Sea Islands in on Hilton Head. And I worked with a shul there. I worked with the Frozen Chosen, the Episcopalians. That's what they call themselves. I did a thing there. And then I also did a thing at the oldest black church on Hilton Head that was established before the emancipation. Wow. This is one of them churches where all the ministers are men and they sit on thrones on the altar. I walked in there and there's these three brothers sitting on their thrones. And they looked at me and they were like, sister? And I went, brothers. So to be able to be in the world in my butch, lesbian, feminist self, no matter where I am, that's really important to me. So that's how it manifests right there.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Wow, that's incredible. You're a brave woman.
I sometimes just ask for all the major and minor deities because I don't like to leave anybody out to look after a sister out there in the world. Brandy, I think, and you too, Holly. I mean, you have been, Holly, let's just face it, Holly has been in the trenches. But that's what we do. I think, Holly, that's always been a thing for me that I have admired your work for so long because you are willing to walk the walk and seriously talk the talk. Mm. And it's not just a matter of singing when it's easy. And we know, and I know, particularly in my culture, that song that's been the thing that's given us the ability to be able to take one more step. Yeah. And that you don't sing necessarily when you're feeling brave. You sing when you're feeling scared shitless.
Scared to death, yeah.
Singing anyway.
I want to come back to asking you that question, Carolyn, but let's listen to the clip that you and I did, and then we can integrate this question into our chat afterwards.
Okay.
I don't have another clip.
Oh, you don't have a Carolyn Brandy clip?
You already did Brandy. We did Brandy before me.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Sorry. All right.
Yeah.
This is an elder program, right?
Talk about being scared shitless.
I know. Sorry about that.
Hey,
it's been very interesting few months and years. I for those of you who don't know, I got a really vigorous cancer, second one, and very hard treatment. I'm a tough farm girl, and it brought me to my knees, in the midst of which I had a stroke. So now we all laugh. Was that an age moment or was that a stroke moment when everything left my brain? I have two excuses. And then I had no hair, and then I had some hair, and now I've got so much hair, it comes back curly after you have chemo and radiation. So it's the most expensive curly haircut I have ever had.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with my mom when she got breast cancer. This back in the day, and her hair came back like
Yeah,
red and gray and really soft.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they say 5 or 10 years it'll go back to being what it is if I'm around that long to experience that. Okay, Carolyn, we already played your clip, and I want to ask you one other thing about how lesbian feminism it affects this work.
Well, yeah, I think we talked about that actually in the interview too. And I said, all of us musicians, and Mel will, I'm sure, agree, we couldn't have done this women's music without lesbian feminists, because wherever we traveled, we stayed with people. They produced the concerts. We stayed in people's houses. They got us from point A to point B. They were the women who were managing us. I mean, it was like a family affair in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And there wouldn't have been all this women from the beginning if it hadn't been from lesbian feminists.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I have to say is it's not just the women's movement, but all of these movements that have happened in our communities, the movements for El Salvador, for Nicaragua, for the migrants down on the border. It's lesbian feminists who are doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's those women that are actually down there at the border doing the work.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that gets recognized very much, but I know that's true. And so do you guys too, I'm sure. You can
Well, that's
speak.
true because yeah, the lesbian feminists and women have been at the grassroots of all of these movements.
That's right.
Yeah.
All
You
of
think
these-
they're in the kitchen, but they're actually
No,
organizing
no, honey. They build in the kitchens.
and building the kitchen.
Yeah. So I mean,
Right.
that's the thing. And I was thinking, Brandy, about the folks that made it possible for us to do this. I was just with Haley just the other day, who, Haley, she was the booking manager for a lot of performers of color. She worked with Pat Parker. She was with Pat when Pat took her last breath. Haley was there.
Yeah.
She managed me. She managed June Millington, Mimi Fox, all of these people with a level of integrity that is second to none. And all of those folks that booked us, and dealt with us in our craziness. Let's just go ahead and admit it.
Yeah.
Hello.
Some of
Well,
us
you know that
nut
record,
burgers with cheese.
you know that record Lesbian Concentrate that came out, was it early
Alex.
80s?
Alex, just send a little love for Alex.
Alex, yes, Alex Doggan. Well, so can you imagine being an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old when this record is sent out by Olivia to the informal distribution system that we had? By the way, Lori Fuchs is in the house also, who was a
Lori.
Lady Slipper. And Lady Slipper and Goldenrod were both
Oh yeah, we have to take
so
them on.
essential, so essential.
Okay,
So can you imagine this young woman having to walk into a commercial record store with Lesbian Concentrate in her hand and say, "Hello, would you like to carry our record?"
Oh my
And
God.
they did.
Mhm.
These women did walk into all these stores with that level of courage. And I can't imagine at that time it was naivete. I think they were just courageous as can
And
be.
they just had to said, okay, we're going in. Here we go.
Going in. Yeah.
They were committed. They were committed,
Mhm.
because they knew the power of it and they knew the destiny of it, in some kind of way that maybe wasn't conscious in the conscious brain, but it was there,
Well, I mean, there wouldn't be Lady Gaga or Taylor Swift or any of those folks or Beyonce. They would not exist without these brave women earlier in the day saying, you know what, we got a place here. We don't care what it is that you're saying. And not only that, but we're going to run our own shit. Excuse my language.
So, dear sweet organizers of this event, thank you for wanting to have us get together and talk. And I hope that the listeners will go and investigate these interviews in great detail. And I'm laughing at myself about losing track of what videos got shown and not, because you have to understand, I've watched all 23 of these interviews about 15 times.
I would imagine.
It was great because every time I heard something different, and I was so proud to be part of this extraordinarily articulate and brave and interesting, creative, profound group of women, of which.
Can I say, I'm sorry for interrupting, but
I should be more.
I wanted to second what Melanie said about you.
Mm.
You're just an extraordinary human being. And it'll make me cry, but I've always loved you. And you've always been the same, on the same mission for equality for everybody, for a better life for everybody. It didn't matter. You've been international in that approach. You've been global. And I don't know, you're really somebody who's so very inspiring, Holly. You're extraordinary. Everything you went through, you were so honest about the cancer and everything. Nothing was hidden. It was like, Holly, you're a really brave woman. I mean, you're incredible. You're just talented, incredible, humble.
And we love you. And that's just, I mean, we just love you. And you know, also not being afraid to feel itchy. That's one of the things I always admired about you, Holly. You're not afraid to, like, okay, I fucked up. And then you'd say, yeah, I fucked up, and then you would shut up. That is admirable. You're a badass mamma jamma.
Well, thank you both.
Interviews too. You give good interviews, great questions, great interviews.
Yep. It was really wonderful to be able to do this with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you what your favorite color was. You're not mad at me for that?
What our favorite song was. Who inspired you both?
Oh gosh, I know interview questions can really get more and more shallow as they go. I heard this young man interviewing Robert Redford once, and he was so out of control in love with looking at Robert Redford. He kept asking Redford, well, how has it been to be so handsome? What does it mean to be an actor in Hollywood when you're so handsome? And has it affected your decisions that you're so handsome? And I just wanted to, if I'd been there, I would have walked over and said, excuse me, shove over, because that's not an interview. That's you wanting a date or something. You just quit being an interviewer if you can't get to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
Robert Redford's pretty smart, deep, interesting person, and it all went to waste. So I appreciate your support on that front. And is there anything either of you want to say before we go Q&A in it?
Let's Q&A.
Let's Q&A. Love you both so much.
Oh, anytime, Hall.
Who's running this
Thank you.
Q&A bit?
That would be me. Well, I'm going to get it started anyway. This
right,
is
Bev.
Mev. So
Hi,
first
Mev.
of all, before we get, but I know some